I'm wearing black today. Just all black. Black t-shirt, black jeans,
Yeah.
black socks, black shoes.
Are you really? That's not the 100 Thieves.
Black hair.
There?
I painted my fingernails black. I changed my bed sheets to black sheets.
Some black eyeshadow you got there, black eyeliner.
If it's not obvious to you, I'm in mourning. Don't talk to me.
Yeah. I'm wearing like one try navy blue. That's the best I could do.
That's the mourning you could accomplish.
Yeah.
Well, you're going to have to step up your morning game, my friend. You know why? Because it was a rough weekend. It was a rough starting weekend to the summer split for 100 Thieves fans, and we, being 100 Thieves fans, are supremely sad. Now,
we're feeling so rough.
There may be reason for optimism. There's always reason for optimism. If we're
always
being honest.
Reason.
We're going to dig super deep. We're going to
find it.
But tonight is actually going to start off a little bit different because we have a special guest with us. And before I do that, I will say for those of you who are with us to hear who has won the Dad Hat giveaway, we're excited to announce that we'll talk about that at the end of the show.
Got him.
So, got him. Stick around, my friends. Stick around. Okay, so back to the guest. We have an extra special thing loaded up for tonight. Our friend Xing Li is here, and Xing is a journalist who is writing for Upcomer.Esports, the Daily Dot. He also hosts a couple of podcasts even. Let's just get like bring his beautiful face on screen so everyone can see him. Hi, Xing.
Hey, Xing.
Look at that winning smile. That's a smile I would describe as a winning smile.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me on the show.
Yeah.
No problem.
Your podcast, by the way, you have the Smite Steel podcast, right, with Aaron Minnick, and then you have your solo effort, the No FFs pod. Is that still going?
Yeah, it's going. I had to take a break because I moved, and we'll get into it a little bit more. That's kind of just it replaces my VOD review because I do it anyway.
Okay.
And so it's a little more hit or miss, but I'm trying to get up something probably next week for LEC preview.
Got it. But you got to do the new house tour vlog first for all the people.
Yeah. We'll give you the tour of the Xing team house.
The Xing Palace. The Xing team house.
Is it sponsored? Have you found a sponsor for your house yet?
You know, I'm open.
Yeah.
100 Talk will sponsor. It'll be the 100 Talk.
Like Nate Shot's place. Yeah. We'll put something on the wall there. We'll get the bright fluorescence and we'll make it look fly.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how much we can promise, but count us in for a sponsorship. We'll send like a housewarming gift or something.
There you go.
We'll give you a percentage of our Twitch cut.
Well,
hey, I'll take it.
You're going to be making a fraction of pennies, my friend. Count yourself rich. Look, Xing is here because 1, he's a friend of the show. 2, he's an actually smart guy about League of Legends, which Jordan and I are not.
Okay.
And 3, this week he had a piece on Amazing and Soligo, which are people of interest for 100 Thieves fans right now.
Persons of interest, 1 and 2.
Persons of interest. So, Xing, if you don't mind, just at the start, can you just talk really quickly about your piece, just in general what it was, and then we'll dive into a couple of points about the piece specifically after that.
Yeah, I mean, those are the 2 new players that 100 Thieves brought in. So Amazing, a long time ago, was a TSM player, went to Europe and kept trying, never quite made it to the title stage in Europe, but had a good run and decided, hey, it's time to come to North America. And, 100 Thieves looking for a jungler. So that was a good fit. Soligo, I thought was a little more interesting. So I actually got to talk to him while he was having lunch between scrims. I think if you asked anyone 6 months ago or a year ago, if this guy, this random solo queue player at the time would be starting for the 100 Thieves at the LCS level, I don't know if you guys saw it coming, but I surely didn't. I don't think he did either.
Yeah.
And so he's a definite surprise as one of the few domestic mids in the region. They talked about what the team house is like, playing with the veterans on the team. They talked about a little bit about what they want to do and how they can turn things around because the spring split was a rough split. I don't think there's any hiding that. And we talked a little bit about...
We've tried to move on and forget it if we're being honest.
Yeah.
So thanks for bringing that up, buddy.
I think we brought it up every pod since. So guilty as charged.
You gotta exercise that from your vocabulary.
Yeah, that's right. Well, hey, so first of all, it's a great piece, and if you're watching this on YouTube, there's a link to it in the comments if you want to pull that up. And we'll put it in the podcast description once that actually comes out too. There are a couple of things on each player side that I kind of wanted to dive into here with you, if you don't mind. One of the things that you brought up was Amazing's connection with Afromu, because they connected on an interesting way. So can you recap their similarities for audience of the pod?
Yeah, he just said that he had learned a lot from Afromu because their careers had taken similar trajectories where they had, success very early on. I mean, we're talking 4 or 5 years ago, type of early on, where they were, considered probably the best in their regions, at their respective positions. And then they went through. So Amazing went to Europe, got relegated. That he went through several teams in Europe.
Yeah.
And then Afromu too is like, since 2016 CLG, since that spring split when they went to MSI, hasn't been a very successful run for him. He won an MVP, which is good, but it's like, these two players have been around. They've seen the highs, they've seen the lows. And Amazing said he learned a lot, just being with Afromu. They hadn't been together for very, very long when I talked to him, but that kind of kinship of having seen it all in League was something that he brought up as, of all the veterans that Untitled Thieves brought in, Afromu was the guy that he felt the most kind of alike in terms of his career.
Yeah. That's cool, because I feel like, especially when you bring a new player in, and maybe even more so when it's a player coming from a different region, that pretty much anything that you can latch on to give, some sort of bond there for the players is going to be a huge bonus right off the bat, because they're not like trying to figure out what their relationship is. They've got a building block in common that they can work with. So,
and I thought it was interesting. You mentioned, I think one of the things you talked about in your piece was that basically everybody on the team is a veteran, and you kind of trace their playing careers back to like the early days of League, even like true veterans, in that they were there from the earliest competitive scene, except for Soligo. So it's an interesting dynamic that you have this immense history and then this brand new kid basically on the scene.
I asked Amazing, I'm like, so you're with all these veterans, Bang, Someday, Afromu, and I didn't mention Soligo because he's obviously a rookie.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, poor Soligo.
Right.
Yeah. Another thing Amazing said that I thought was interesting, and I'm assuming this is going to be a direct quote, like you quoted him in the piece, so I'm guessing these are his words, right?
Yes.
He said one of the things that he was there to do was to, quote, make everyone care about one another. All right.
Yes.
Those are very specific words with some very specific meanings. Do you read this statement as him implying that there's lack of trust or lack of chemistry? Like, being there to do the interview or what, I don't know if you had a Skype call or whatever, but having that intimate understanding with him, what did he freaking mean when he said that?
Yeah. So you can definitely read in between the lines. And I'll approach it two ways. One is the read in between the lines, right? So this team has had some interesting things happen. It wasn't just last split, right? This is a team that started off 2018 with a jungler that is no longer on the roster. And then now they have a mid laner who's no longer on the roster. And this is their third jungler. And the interesting thing for me is the players that they've replaced are all the so-called like domestic players, like the guys that should have fit in culture-wise, language-wise a little bit better. Whereas the players that have stayed on, I mean, obviously the building block was Someday, so you're not going to get rid of him. But I just thought it was interesting that Someday and Bang are kind of, they're on the sidelines here while there's somewhat of a turmoil in the team. So I don't think it's like a secret that something is going on. And I'm not sure what it is. I do think that like Someday in particular is really interesting because he's their best player and he's the one that this is built around. It's Someday and Afromu. And as great of a player as Someday is, like people always talk about how he's a quiet guy. He doesn't toot his own horn. He's not like that vocal leader.
Yeah.
And I think you need that because I think leading by example is great, but it only works if everyone is inherently on the same page with you already. Right? If they don't need that verbal direction, if you've been together for so long, or you already are connected, then it works. But I think he doesn't provide that as much. So that's kind of the reading between the lines thing. And the other thing is just like that's Amazing's role within any team, is that he's the uniter, he's the chemistry guy, and he noted it. He says like I'm not the same jungler I was 5 years ago, right? I'm not going to win games because of my mechanics or I can pick up new champions faster than everyone else.
Are you telling me he used to land his Sejuani ults?
Bogus.
It's coming in hot. No, I'm just
Huh?
I'm just having fun. I'm just having fun. Go ahead. Sorry.
Right. I mean, he's been in losing situations before, and he's been in winning situations, and I think he knows, right? Like, sometimes it's not talent that's the difference. Sometimes it's something else outside of what's going on stage, and I think, and that applies to every team. Like any team that he would have joined, I think he would have brought that element of, I'm gonna bring these guys together in a way that translates both on the stage and off.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting because actually, you know, I was thinking, I'm watching the NBA Finals, and it reminds me of somebody like a Kendrick Perkins, who's like not a great player, but he has that reputation, right, of being the locker room guy, and everybody who actually plays with him speaks really highly of him. So yeah, that's kind of a similar role that's being played here. But you did mention, you know, especially with Someday, there being like not a kind of assertive communication coming from him, right? And interestingly enough, it seems to be something that Soligo is working on, because when I was reading what you wrote about him and what he told you, and comparing it to what we've seen from him in the Heist and the What's Not Given, which is their Academy series from last year for 100 Thieves, he seems to almost even have a habit of talking about, like, I should have been more confident, or I should be able to say this. I should have said this at this point. So confidence seems to be something that's always on his mind and that maybe he's struggling with. Do you, after seeing this weekend's games, and maybe, I don't know how much you watched in the last split where he played the final 3 weeks of the split, but are you seeing this lack of confidence show up in his play? And if so, how's it affecting him?
Yeah, it's hard to see in the play because it's not like he's not confident on the champions that he's picking, and that he made a point. Like, and we talked about some of the counter picks and some of the specific matchups he had last spring, but it's not, you know, that he's mechanically like, oh, I'm going against X mid laner, I'm going against Bjergsen, or last week I'm going against Crown, a world champion. I don't think he's fazed by that as much as what is he doing in his lane, and what does that mean for bot lane 2 minutes from now? I think that's the aspect of it that's missing, at least now, and for good reason. I mean, that's a hard thing to pick up. Mid lane's a very mechanically intensive. Mid lane's a really mechanically intensive situation, so you've got a lot going on, and even the best mid laners in the world can sometimes struggle with being able to communicate what they need and then what they can provide for their team. And so I think it's that aspect of being assertive, and that's just going to come with time. I mean, there's no replacement for time on the LCS stage doing that type of thing.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Fortunately, at least, you know, if things are going according to plan, the piece also talks about Amazing guiding him right in and out of the game right now. That's good, because obviously what happens to them is closely tied together, right? Because like mid jungle is supposed to be a synergistic pairing for the Rift, and then you know, of course, obviously, like in the context of being players for 100 Thieves, it matters too what happens to them. So can you kind of share your take after having a conversation with both of them? What's your level of optimism for that pairing and for them finding their synergy with each other and synergy within the team as a whole? Are you bullish?
That's a really tough
bearish?
question. Yeah, like, it's a really tough question. The interesting thing is, again, Soligo is one of very few domestic mids. So he's got a lot of ground to make up if he wants to even become like the 5th or the 6th best mid laner in the region. Just because like you have so many good players that they brought in, like Crown I mentioned, Niski C9 brought in this year to compete. Like they're really good players, and the cream is rising to the top in terms of mid lane. I'm definitely optimistic in terms of maybe how fast a player like Amazing can get Soligo up to that level. Like, I think there's definitely synergy, you know, benefits there to having someone like Amazing. I also think that, you know, you look at this weekend 0-2. Well, Amazing hasn't been with the team for that long. Like, they haven't had that much time to work on this stuff. And so I think that, you know, give it some time. If you look at what Schalke did last year, right? Schalke was not, they weren't bad, but they had Nuke Duck, right? So they Nuke Duck, and you know, you would think a team with him, and they had good pieces in the bot lane too, and you would think like upset Nuke Duck, that's going to be at least top 3-4 in the LEC or EU LCS at the time, and they underperformed in spring. So, I wouldn't jump on any conclusions just because of an 0-2 week to start things. So I think short term, I'm definitely optimistic. Long term, it's anyone's guess because of that track record.
I was going to ask you because one of the things you talked about and wrote about was he had been awake for 18 hours at the point that they actually went in to pick bands. And so I think a lot of people looking at that and saying the guy, and he mentioned it, he was kind of playing through a fog, right? Like literally, mentally, he was in a fog. The thing that jumped out to me was, I mean, how many scrims have they even played together? If he was truly in a different country up until basically they sat down on the LCS stage. I mean, he wasn't announced that long ago. So I'm assuming that they had some time to practice together, but it's unclear to me if that was anything substantial at all, or if it was just like show up and play and let's see what happens.
Yeah, I didn't get the sense that they had that much time with scrims, if any. So yeah, it's definitely.
I think that's really important.
I think it was the second part.
Yeah,
it's important. It's I'm like I've been saying that scrims have been overrated for years. I think a lot of teams misuse their scrim time.
I was gonna say I think I remembered you making that point, so I was gonna bring it up if you did. Good.
So yeah, a lot of teams misuse their scrim time. However, if you've got a new player coming in from another region who also hasn't played competitively in some time, I think it kind of is kind of important.
Right. Yeah, that's true. Like Ryu had at least had a academy game. Like he was coming. The last match he played was Worlds.
Yeah.
And he warmed up on a smaller stage. So it's tough. It's tough.
Well, Xing, look, was there anything that came up in your interviews that was interesting from the guys that maybe didn't make it into the piece that you could share with us?
I pretty much put everything I had in the piece. Like they gave really good, succinct interviews that were really fun. It's just like personality. I think Soligo's got a really cool personality. We talked about his summoner name and using the surnames of both his mom and his dad and like making that come together. Just a really fascinating guy. I would say like, the stuff that didn't come off immediately in the piece or the stuff like reading in between the lines, like who is the leader of this team? Before Amazing got there, what sort of off the rift issues might they have had in the team house or just didn't bond as closely as they would have hoped. And you look at like, for me, the guy that was supposed to make that happen was Huhi. I don't know what situation was going on there, but reading in between the lines, it looks like he wasn't able to bridge between Bang and Someday and the two resident players as well as they would have hoped. So stuff like that. But yeah, most of it was already, it was in the piece.
Okay.
Read the piece, y'all.
Read the piece, everybody, if you haven't already.
Piece. I enjoyed it a lot. It was really good.
Yeah. So if you don't mind, we'll finish with just a couple questions about the team as it stands right now and projecting it into the split a little bit. So after watching these first couple games, what us as 100 Thieves fans are doing, or we're asking ourselves, like, are we still the spring 2019 Thieves, or are there material differences in this team that we can, latch onto and hope that they blossom a little bit? I mean, where do you stand on that? Or is it? I mean, look, obviously it's 1 week, right? But we need some sort of assurance. We need to know we're going to be okay. Or if we're not, just tell us so we can end it right now.
So it hasn't been great. What happened in spring was that they would achieve early game leads and then throw them, right? They would make horrible objective calls or objective calls where they chose like none objectives out of 2. The bad part is now they're losing in the lane phase. Their draft against CLG I thought was pretty poor.
Yeah.
You're giving a tough you're giving mid lane priority with Azir, and then Amazing. I mean, he's playing in a fog, but like he can't make those type of mistakes, and that kind of snowballed the bot lane. It's gonna be a rough one in terms of lane phase. And if you watch like Pro View, I actually thought Soligo played okay. Like Soligo,
Pro View,
like there's nothing he can do. There's nothing he could do on the Amazing Death. In the game 2 where he got dove by the Jace, like again, there's nothing he can do about that. He's playing a tough matchup and the Jace came down. Again, whether you want to draft against that specific style the same way, I think I know what they're going for because it was all the AD comp and they had, 1 AP threat. So they're thinking we can team fight with the Ornn and Sejuani. But the one thing, if you look at Pro View, that is kind of concerning is the bot lane for me.
Yeah.
I don't know that I think like Bang and Afromu do not look like they're on the same page. I thought Sivir Morgana was really interesting. Bang is, I think, I don't know what's going on. He's never been like a laning beast, but he's giving up CS. He's being zoned out of waves. Like Arrow built a massive CS lead on him.
Yeah.
And it wasn't even in that bad of a matchup, but he just zoned him out with the Xayah feathers and just he couldn't approach the wave and missed a few minions here and there. So that's something that is kind of a yikers for me. I do hope that, like, you know, the one hope is that Amazing can play better, and I think he will. And I think that if you give it time, I think he will be able to make better late game calls, and they'll be able to stabilize around that mid game. And so if they can bridge to that, I think the team that did lane well in spring is still there. So the optimism is this was just a fluke of an early game week, and then Amazing can bring you home as he gets more incorporated with the rest of the team.
Okay. Well, that's fair enough. I'll tell you this. With that optimistic take, I will probably be calling you before and after every game, just using you as my therapist. No, I'll just be like, dude, please help me feel good. Okay, final question, then we'll let you run. So given what you were just saying, where are you projecting 100T is going to finish this split?
I think so. In our power rankings before the split, we had him 6th.
Mm-hmm.
I think
AKA the last playoff spot, everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the last playoff spot. 6 teams out of 10 make playoffs. I still probably have them in that 6-7 territory.
6 good, 7 bad.
Correct.
I mean, if you're coming from lower than that, so
yes,
it
still
is
an improvement.
It would still be an improvement.
Wouldn't be an improvement with much to feel good about. You know, it's like a 50% F versus a 55% F.
It depends though, right? Like it's all relative because at the end of the day, only one team's going to feel really good about themselves, right? Only one team wins this thing, and so. I wrote another piece before all this, before I knew who was going to be on the team, about like what they learned from spring, and they learned something that is very rare. Like they are really, really bad, and you don't get that opportunity a lot. So even if they are 7th, if you learn something about Soligo, good or bad, if you learn something about how Amazing fits, if you learn something about Bang Afromu with ProView, and you're going to have Reddit analysts talking about them for the rest of the split.
Yep.
Because now they can see what they're doing in lane.
That's right.
We open the floodgates.
But you know what I'm saying? Like even 7th can be valuable long term because again, only one team's gonna win this split. But that doesn't mean you can't take away good things from it or learn from it.
All right.
I like the optimism, and
Yeah.
I think that's a good reminder. We've gotta hold on to hope here. It's not over yet. It's just 1 week.
Yeah. All right. With that, we will release you into the wild. We thank you for coming here tonight and consoling us, giving us the juicy bits of your interviews as well. Again, the link to that has been spammed in Twitch chat by our unofficial mod, Bedingerim. Thank you.
Nice.
And it's also in the YouTube, so you can see it there. Xing, I hope we get to do this again, and I hope when we talk again, it'll be about 100 Thieves in the playoffs.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Successful season.
Yeah.
Good luck, guys. Love
Thank
the
you.
show.
Thank
Doing
you.
it.
All right, man.
Thanks, Ding.
Thanks. Take
All right.
care.
Thanks.
Take care, buddy. See ya.
All righty. Xing is the man, as if you didn't know that already, now you surely know. Jordan, you want to flip your camera back for me when you have a second? And
I'd love to.
Let's switch gears now that we've had like kind of a look at Amazing and Soligo and a little bit of pep talk from our dear friend.
Look, can we just focus on that for a moment?
Okay.
How valuable that
right.
pep talk is. This is a guy who has no affiliation. He's got no on-paper allegiance. He's just spitting it how he sees it. And what I'm hearing from him is he's not ready to walk away from his power rankings predictions. So neither should we. We said 6th.
Yeah.
We said playoffs.
Yeah, we said playoffs. All right.
You're looking at me like you're ready to walk away from that.
Look, I am not ready to walk away. We're going to talk about this more. I do have patience left for this. And that's actually like one of the things that I will be pleading with everybody to have is patience. Yeah, because that is definitely It's a tall order right now, but at the same time, it's necessary. We can't let emotions get the best of us when we're making these judgments, and we have to do our best. But look, we have to talk about the games that actually happened. And we're not going to like dive deep into the analysis of like what happened at every moment of these games. But we do need to touch base with game 1 against CLG, which can we just call the amazing jet lag game?
Jet lag plus customs.
The jet lag, the amazing customs game. There's a new meaning when he said you want to play customs. This was not.
He doesn't want to.
This was not good. Not
This was honestly. I watched this game and I was like, oh, so we're the same team. This is exactly what we looked like last split.
Yeah, and I saw lots of people spamming that like Grand Theft Auto meme about us. Like
here we
go again. You know.
Yeah.
And it is hard to not feel that way. I did want to mention one thing. Like I said, we're not going to spend too much time talking about these games, but Yuumi, man, Yuumi was a big problem for us. We did not ban Yuumi, and we rued the moment we did not ban Yuumi.
Yeah, that was a huge problem.
That was oppressive, and I don't know if there's an answer to that. Like, really, is this just a permaban champion now for us?
Us and everybody, I think. Like, I think if you're gonna play against Yuumi, you're rolling the dice, and there's a chance that you just lose that game. I think you tweeted it after the game of like, if
I tweeted so many things after the game, man. You can't hold me accountable.
We might as well GG next. That was right. That was a correct assessment of that situation. And I was so glad to see us ban her in game 2.
Yeah.
Because we really needed to. And, you know, she's already on the list of champions to be nerfed in, I think, 9-12. So they'll get there. But until then, yeah, I think you've got to, you know, unless you're going to IG your way out of the Sonateric lane and win in just most fantastic fashion, I think you just got to be very careful about letting that champion through right now.
Yeah, I tweeted this too after the Academy games and before the LCS matches started. I tweeted that seeing what we drafted in Academy and seeing how they played out, I felt like maybe our analysts and coaches did not have a great read on the meta.
Yeah,
where it was, because it just seemed like we were outdrafted really badly in both of those games. And I think my worry proved true a little bit when Yuumi showed up and just like wrought havoc on the nation of 100 Thieves. It was bad, man. Like, I've never seen so many of her little like ult waves land.
Oh, she missed like 2.
Yeah, the entire game, and
Maybe.
she ulted approximately 59 times.
And if you count, you know, the ults where she hit multiple people, then she missed -20.
Right. It was insane.
And the Qs, can we talk about the Qs and how much damage they were doing?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was one of those games
slow,
where it's
right?
like,
They get a slow off too.
Yeah. When you're playing against Zoe, who's just like fed to the point that it doesn't really matter. You know, it's like there's nothing you can do or buy that's going to fix this situation other than your Nexus being destroyed and her going back to level 1. Like that's all you can wait for.
Yeah.
So,
some other notes from the game that I wanted to mention. We got a bot lane gank 3 minutes into the game.
Whoa.
And if I'm not mistaken, we got a flash or 2 on the gank. So it wasn't wildly successful, but it would still be considered a success. What was it like? It was like what, week 6 when we got our first bot lane gank last split. So at least there was that change, you know?
Yeah. I mean, that's everybody in the chat who said they were waiting and counting. There it is.
Yeah.
It happened.
Do you have any other notes from this game? Because like, honestly, it just like they got a lead. They snowballed the lead. We never closed the gap, and it was just not good, man. Like, it just played out very messy in the end. I'm not sure there's a whole lot you can say about it other than the jet lag thing, right?
Yeah. And I do think, I mean, if we're going to talk about anything, and I guess we're going to now because I'm going to bring it up, it feels like there were a lot of people who were like, well, Amazing is garbage and he shouldn't be on any team. And I do think that when you consider all the things Xing talked about, the jet lag, the customs, the arriving just right before we go on stage, not having scrim time, not having played on a professional team for a full year, like that's all a factor. And whether or not you think that's like, yeah, whatever, like get good, that's not nothing. And I think when I look at that game and the stuff that he misplayed and that he just didn't do as well mechanically or whatever else, I'm willing to give him a lot more flex.
Yeah.
And he looked so much better in the next game.
He looked better in the next game. I'm not going to say
so much better compared to the first game.
I'm not sure I fully agree with that assessment.
And we already know that you are going to give him some heat for his Sejuani ults.
Yeah, they were bad, man. Like, they were really bad. Not gonna lie.
But we looked so much better, and maybe it's just because Yuumi wasn't playing. Yeah. But I'm a lot more, and I don't know if this is right or accurate of me to do, but I'm kind of at the position where if we have better play as a team, I think I'm putting it on Amazing at this point, because everybody else is the same, and we've seen this roster kind of at the trough of performance.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. Is that wrong of me?
It's really funny. Trough performance. We
wasn't
know
Apex.
Peak performance, but now
it wasn't the peak.
Meet its opposite, trough performance.
I'm hearkening back to like 7th grade Earth Sciences class where they get the wave.
Yeah, that's right.
Like, well, what do they call the bottom?
Oh wow, they call it 100 Thieves. Look. Yeah, I'm memeing a bit, okay?
You're memeing.
Obviously, I love
You're
this
in a
team
memey
and I'm
mood
rooting
today.
for us. Yeah, I'm a little bit, because I'm a little bit desperate.
But is that wrong of me to do? To attribute gains in performance overall to him at this point?
I don't think it's entirely wrong. I think it's also entirely too soon.
Yeah.
So we'll have to see how it plays out. But yeah, I agree. Like, we've seen what Soligo is a little bit already. And yeah, like, just that's kind of a major piece being rotated. Soligo and Huhi, they play differently, but the result is all just been pretty much the same, right? The same CS deficits and things not working out. Like, Huhi's supposed to be a roam and like make a play thing, but those plays never really worked out. So it's kind of a net zero there. So yeah, I think that's maybe fair to say. I will say what I have been doing is watching these games and been looking for any things that we do that we didn't do last split, right? So like I mentioned, the gank bot, we kind of actually, if I'm being honest about it, we forced an Infernal Drake, but they ended up giving it to us. So, you know, like, we're doing some things strategically a little bit differently, which is maybe a plus. But
are we officially into the OpTic game now?
No, well, now I was just going to transition to the OpTic game.
Oh,
because
sorry. I was going to bring up something else we did that we didn't do, but I'll save it.
Okay. Well, I was just going to say with the OpTic game, if there's anything to be happy about, it's that there was definite improvement from game 1 to game 2 in how we played. There certainly were things that were more successful this time around. So, yeah, go ahead. I mean, take the ball and run with it. Talk about OpTic.
Well, I know this is on your notes too, right? But and I think anybody who watched this game would say that, you know, a successful Baron take is a positive thing. Depends on what you do with it, the buff after you get it. But let's not forget how that started. It was amazing in the pit with Bang, and I don't think we saw that. Like, I think that's new to this split.
Yeah.
I can't.
Well,
I mean,
let's
sure
give more
we had some weird
context then.
stuff,
If we're gonna go ahead and talk about this play, you know, I didn't think we were gonna hit this earlier since it was kind of, you know, the end of the game. But contextually, right, we've got a split push going on. They're shoving in bot, right, and they're on our T3. Some days down there defending it, and they're kind of spread across the map. And yeah, you're right. Like, they are up there in the Baron pit, sneaking a Baron essentially.
Yeah.
Which is, yeah, I can't recall seeing a play like that, and I mean, a little bit of a risky call, right? Because if you get caught out doing that, there are bad consequences. But hey, guess what? It worked. They got the Baron. And then, like you said, it's what you do after getting the Baron that matters. And what did they do, Jordan?
Well, they saw Soligo running for his life, doing his little backflippy escape deal, and he escaped. And then Nautilus was like, well, if he's out, I'm out. So he hooks back into their jungle, and we just decide why don't we make a fight out of this then? Nautilus, you want to try to escape?
If you're scared, we're going to fight.
We'll call that bluff. And then we show up, and then TP start hitting, and it's just like, whoa, this has gotten way out of control, everybody.
Yeah.
And then we're all dead.
Yeah, the two
except
TPs
for Someday. I think Someday.
No, Afro survived it. Yeah. The TPs proved super deadly, so we weren't respecting the teleport. And geez, that was really bad, because you and I both felt, and I think many fans felt, that's a easy decision, right? It's an easy decision to base and reset and then use the Baron, right? Which they could have done. Even if like Soligo ends up dying or whatever, so at least you got 4 other members that have the Baron buff, right?
But he was definitely out.
I think he would have made it out, yeah.
Yeah. They were disengaging.
Yeah.
They were ready to just go back and reset themselves.
Right. And instead we decided to make a sad engage. So
I don't know, man. Like when we play Rec League, I feel like that's there's always got to be that person who's like, don't team fight. It's not worth it. We've got Baron. You know? Like, don't take it.
Yeah.
They're baiting you.
Well,
and I know
no one was that voice this time.
You've got to be decisive and you've got to go for those plays and you got to make things happen. This is just one of those that obviously now we can look back and say like, well, that was the wrong choice.
Yeah, let's see. I'm trying to find it here because I know we had a listener take that talked about this. I'm trying to find it. I'm so sorry. Oh, and it was our old friend Scion Bot. So speaking of Rec League, someone plays. He had a long, good take on this, but I did just want to point out one piece of it, and he said, "This one hurts because we made a call to catch arrow and followed through." Right, so he's saying like we actually followed through with the call. It wasn't like a indecisive thing like you were saying. Right. We made the decision and we went for it even when it started to turn a little bit. Is that an improvement? Perhaps it's an improvement mentality wise, but maybe we were too zealous in that situation. Like I said, it's quite obvious they've got the TPs ready. You know, so
I think it's. I'm glad you brought that up. And I think it's another thing that we should highlight as being different. Not like, oh, we threw the game. That's great. That's different. We had a position to throw from and we threw. But I think the fact that, you know, we made it was a pretty cohesive play, right? Like when you look at it, you can kind of understand what they were trying to do. Mm-hmm. And if not for one team fight that just went that fell apart, then we had a voice and we were following it and we did exactly what that voice was saying. And going back to what I said, I'm gonna give that to our boy Amazing, who found himself in the Baron pit in the first place, getting basically a free Baron for us. Yeah. You know, and obviously had Bang for deeps, but so there are positives there, right? There are positives, and it hurts a lot. Or hurts a little bit. I don't know. Where would you put it on the scale?
Well, I tweeted right after.
Hurts just a little bit.
1 to 2. Yeah.
Yeah.
There are a couple of chat comments in Twitch I wanted to mention. Finbar Smith said shows that there's at least a small bit of trust between them, which I don't think we had that last split, which is, you know, possibly true. QuasiCat is illustrating why ProView is both a great idea and a terrible idea. Because it will be an endless source of controversy that will never ever be decided or known.
Although I think I think you see on my way pings outside of Pro, but go ahead.
Oh yeah, that's fair enough. Well, anyway, this is a joke. But he said Afro was the first person to turn around and on my way ping after Soligo first escaped. I hope he didn't make that call, and that's something that unless we get comms released on the heist or whatever, we're not gonna know. Yeah. So it's just speculation, and at this point, I just don't even want to speculate. It's week 1, man.
I think we should talk about that too. Like when we think, you know, the heist is gonna be another sad heist, and I'm sure Gabe's getting really tired of like combing through his sad songs.
I was gonna say he's using up all his sad music library. He's gonna need to work hard.
He's got to start going to like the French cinema classics, right? Of like dreary Parisian streets. Anyway, I think attitude at this point is so key, and I think like we're a very, very small section of this, but I do think it is too early to abandon all hope and just assume that this team is going to be a 10th place team, even though right now we're in 10th place and OpTic is in first place. So what is life? But I hope that the official messaging on this isn't too down,
right?
Because I think, you know, if we continue to play more like we played on Sunday than Saturday, and we continue to ban Yuumi, I think there are games we'll win. Like this game was very much in reach, and I think we could have very easily pulled it off.
Yeah.
And if what QuasiCat's saying is right, and, well, I know what he's saying is right, but if that is the correct assessment of like Afro made a call, that we should take that fight, and that ended up being not the right call. I think those are the kinds of things that you can start to flesh out from 1 week to the next and say, you know what, Amazing's going to be our shot caller from now on. Like, it's different, but we're going to go with it. And I would hope that he could get behind that, or, like, that's the kind of stuff that we could see change our fortunes. So yeah, not doom and gloom.
That's fair. And I want to make a point about that when we talk about the inevitable point of coaching a little bit later. So I'm going to put a bookmark in that. But I did want to raise one more concern that I'm seeing, and something that I'm going to be keeping my eye on for the whole split. And the OpTic game was a pretty big example of this. We for sure are having a CS problem. Okay? And this is not talked about other than Soligo mostly. But, I mean, Bang and Aframu are typically not ahead in bot lane.
Right.
Soligo was down 70 CS, at 25 minutes, somewhere in there.
I think at Baron time, he's like 220 to 290.
Yeah, like, that's what I'm saying. Like, it's a big, big deficit. That is a lot of gold. And he's getting down in other ways, right? With, like, plates and, he doesn't actually die too much. So that's very good. But, yeah, there's a CS problem brewing. And I'm going to keep my eye on that, because that, as you know, something as simple as that can make all the difference in the early and mid game, right? Yeah. So, yeah, that's something that I think as fans we need to keep our eyes on as we're trying to understand what this team is and what the issues are.
Can I provide an example that may illustrate this point that you're making?
Sure.
Run that team fight back and invert the power spike, right? If we have a CS lead, do we just steamroll that fight? And then we have an ace and a Baron buff, and we, that's why, obviously, this is not rocket science, but, like, that's the difference. And in this case, what if that difference is exactly what cost us the game? And that's where, even if you're making the right macro plays and you're stealing the Baron or getting a free Baron, if you don't have the CS or the gold to then win the fight, does it really matter, right?
Yeah.
You just have to play that much more carefully.
And
we didn't.
And as Nutty9 is pointing out in Twitch chat, that was supposedly a winning matchup, right, in mid lane. So
is Akali Vlad a winning matchup though?
That's that. I hear people say that, man. I don't play mid, I don't play top, so I can't.
I don't know.
This is where we are not good analysts comes in. Like, we're good at talking about the team. We're not good about knowing what the facts are. But
I won't drop names here, but I was talking to somebody who knows a lot more about these kinds of things, and he was saying that you have this oppressive poke coming from Vlad nonstop. Like, he's not worried about his mana bar. He's just constantly poking you down, and you can't really all in him early with a call. You're not gonna have enough burst damage to kill him. So as I was understanding it, pretty much the only thing you can do as a Kali in that matchup is just try not to die, right? And your healing's gone in lane. Like, you're not getting heals. There's no sustain as a Kali. So if you're absorbing the Qs from Vlad, he's getting health back, you're getting poked down. That seems like it would be a losing matchup to me.
I don't know. Like I said, I saw a lot of people believing it's a winning matchup, and then there's a possibility that it's even too. I don't know, but even if it's like an even matchup, even if it's a losing matchup, if we're being honest, like, being 70 to 90 CS down is not the way. It's not the path to walk on. So
it's not.
Yeah. Okay. Let's talk about some more general overarching things. Then we'll do giveaway winner, and then we'll close up the pod. So
let's do it.
First thing I want to talk about. It's probably watch time.
We're actually giving this segment of the show some time now.
It's probably watch.
Instead of just like the
we
last
used to just
minute.
be like, hey, everyone, stop saying probably needs to be fired. It's too soon. Now the question is, when is it not too soon anymore, right? And the question that I have for you is, if we continue this sort of trajectory, which is in best case ambiguous and worst case a definite down, right? How much time does he have left? Like, what if you have him, if you're his boss, like, how much time are you giving him before you make a move?
Yeah. What are you doing on Wednesday? No, I think, I definitely, okay, next weekend is TL and Clutch, I believe, correct? Clutch, then TL. So that is one game that we absolutely should win, even if we are as bad as we were last split. If we made no improvements, then we should still win the Clutch game because we beat them twice last split. And I'm not trying to like put it in anybody's face. I'm just saying that them are the facts. And and I know Clutch, they had another O2. They had an O2 weekend as well. Our brothers in misery. So so if we lose that game, that's a big problem. If we lose the TL, kind of expected. I'd say if we go through week 3 without picking up a win, then I think you're probably you're booking some interviews, is my guess.
Yeah.
And I don't think you want to you don't want to rush into a replacement, right?
Right.
Because at that point, if you're 0-6, again, you have to ask the question of what are we playing for at this point?
Mm-hmm.
And do we want to get somebody? Are we throwing the Hail Mary to say who can we bring in to save us and make playoffs so that we can get 10 gauntlet point? I don't know. What is the ambition?
Yeah, I want to bring up a comment by Brother Darkness Gaming in the Twitch. He said, I used to be on the probably hate train, which is funny because if you know anything about my history with Brother Darkness Gaming, we never agree on anything. So interestingly enough, when I'm just starting to pivot towards, okay, I'm going to start tracking Probably, he flips back to not being on the Probably hate train. Anyway, he says, but you can't blame him for all the missed skill shots, black shields, not using Rift before plates expire, and bad engages, which I'm not sure I fully agree with that statement. And here's why. Yes, he didn't aim at the skill shots. He didn't click the buttons, or not click the buttons. He didn't miss the Sejuani ults, right? But he is ultimately accountable for training these players. And what's beyond that is I am sure, given the structure of this team, that he has a ton of input on who the players are. So he's evaluating the roster at all times, and he's informing the team which decision that they should probably make. And again, given the structure of the team, I would heavily weight that. This is most likely a more Bill Belichickian situation as far as, influence with what roster moves are being made. So yes, he is actually accountable for those things. He didn't miss the skill shots himself, but man, at some point, you have to take some action on those things. So yes.
let me ask you.
Can I just clarify my position before you ask that question? I just want to say I am not saying fire Probably right now. That is not what I'm saying at all. I'm saying I am now beginning to take that proposition more seriously and saying, hey, after a given amount of time, we need to start seriously considering this option, which I don't know what that amount of time is, but I feel like it's definitely this split and that he is coaching for his job in summer 2019.
Yeah, I don't think that's debatable. I don't think anybody in here, and let me know if you disagree in chat, but I don't think anybody would say, look, we could go another 4-14 split, Probably is safe. The guy's untouchable. I don't see how you could possibly say that, right? At what point would you just say there is a limit and we have exceeded it? Don't forget, in Xing's piece, Amazing talks about the connection he has with Probably as well. So I think if you have some hope in Amazing being somebody who can actually, even if it is a 7th place finish, but improve us, then you got to be very careful about that because he came here to play for Probably and with Probably. And I think you're I don't think you should look at replacing the head coach, and I'm not accusing you of doing this, by the way, as a simple role swap like you would say put Fake Out in for someday and just we'll just see what happens.
Yeah.
There are much bigger implications, and I think as a fan and as an outsider, I don't think it's possible to appreciate the ramifications of a move like that fully.
Right, because if you're replacing the coach, you're replacing a system.
Yeah.
It's not like you're replacing the component at the bottom of the chain. You're really replacing the theory of how everything is supposed to work for the team. Yeah. So you're absolutely right on that. Then again, you have like Kelsey, who's there, who's been there for a while, and who could potentially take over. You have Joseph, Jungle Juice, who's also there. So it's not like the team would be completely. Coach. Yeah, got promoted. He's up on stage during draft now, which is good for him. I like Joseph.
Yeah. Way to go.
Well, but like I said, I like Probably too. I like Kelsey. I like the coaches, but there is a point where you do have to start asking those questions and answering them honestly. So I think that time is coming for sure. I want to keep racing along because we've got a little bit more to cover and we're running out of time. But Soligo, which we've already talked about a little bit, but how I wanted to ask the question and maybe give some context on how we should be evaluating Soligo. Okay. Because obviously right now we're focusing a lot on the fact that he's losing lane and that he is, maybe not making the best decisions or whatever. Like I said, he's not really dying, but here's some things to think about. And maybe you can, if I'm off base on something, or if you have an insight tied to each one of these things, feel free to jump in and go. And I'm going to focus my conversation on where we are right now because it's a new split and it's been a few months since he played his first, few LCS games or whatever. And as a new and growing player, that can make a huge difference. So the first thing is opponents. Like, this is week 1. He played 2 games. Who are his opponents? His opponents were Power of Evil and Crown. So if you're ranking who are the best mids in NA, those guys are up there towards the top, right? Yeah. That is tough matchups. We saw him do decently well against Bjergsen, and as we've pointed out on the pod, he did have a lot of support from his teammates during that matchup. But he did pretty well against, what most people would consider to be the best mid in NA. Mm-hmm. And now we're seeing Power of Evil and Crown, and he's kind of getting beat up a little. How much do we give that to strong opposition, and how much do we attribute that to him personally?
Here's my take on this. So, Bjergsen, Jensen, Niski, Power Evil, Crown. Those are the 5 people that we'll talk about. Recently, him having played and being like, or I don't know if he for sure played all those other ones, but I know he played. Anyway, that's 5. That's half the league right there. That's half the league. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of, I think you have to check your expectations at the door a little bit and say, mid is so stacked and it's so good. And I don't know what if we're going to give him tough matchups, we've just written off at least half the league. And that's not even getting to Pobelter. And, there are others as well. Demonte is a guy who everybody's like, oh yeah, it's Demonte's split spring. He was benched. He got sat. Yeah. So it's just such a tough lane right now. And there's so many good players in the LCS at that position. The guy's got his work cut out. Yeah. And that is by no means us saying it's not important, or of course he's going to lose. But it's just so hard to get a realistic sense of what we can expect. And I think that's where I'm at with Soligo. It's like, he's not getting smashed in these matchups. The CS is looking really bad.
Yeah, I was going to say, depends on what your definition of smashed
He didn't feed kills in the lane phase.
Yes.
Like, he played.
That's what someone like me would do. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I would feed kills. He's not doing that. Yes.
To be fair, and I'm not trying to draw an equivalence here because it's not the same, but that was the big problem with Ryu at Worlds. Is he, by the time we got out of lane phase, he had died and he had given up a lot. And look, I know that gold is, there's a conversion rate for minion to kill gold. Like, it's there, it's real. You can get just as much gold from getting a CSD of a high enough. So I don't know, man. I'm so torn on this. And I just don't think it's fair. Like, would anybody say he's a top 5 mid? I don't think so. Mm-hmm. So is the question here, is he losing gracefully enough?
Yeah, and that's always going to be the thing, is like, can he bend not break, right? That's his role, is to bend not break. Unless we have an exceptional player coming into mid, that's going to be what Soligo does for us. Unless he eats a mushroom or whatever and suddenly becomes a different player.
He goes on a vision quest.
Yeah, goes on a vision quest, we'll say. So, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. I mean, at least knowing what the bounds are for your skill level and everything, that could be useful in game planning and stuff. So, and I fully expect him to become a better player over the course of this split. Like, I don't think he's going to be on the way down. I don't think we've seen peak Soligo. And as we brought up in, the last split, there obviously is a calculated risk you take when you start somebody who's young, maybe before they're not ready. I think all things considered, we're going to see Soligo become a better player and not a worse player. So we'll see how that plays out. The next thing I want to bring up on evaluating him is stats, because those are looking really rough right now. Like if you go through like Oracle's Elixir for mids, for instance, it's pretty obvious that he's at the bottom, in the very last spot. We're talking last 2 or 3 spaces in all categories except for wards placed.
Yeah.
So stats are supposed to be a little more objective, right? But this is when I am going to bring up small sample size theater, which, he played 2 exceptionally tough opponents, I think, as far as NA is concerned. Like he played definitely 2 top half opponents, maybe even top third opponents.
Right.
So I'm not ready to fully like use the stats as the proof that he's not gonna work, because we need more time for sure on that.
Yep.
And then the last thing I want to talk about with him is like considering what the strategy of the opposing team is when they play him, because there's a difference between like, we set up a split push comp and then, we beat them or whatever. Or we're going to play right through mid and shove it down their throat, right? Which is kind of what we're seeing happen. We saw that happen last split too, when he was playing his first games, where teams were like, all right, let's focus mid a little bit. Well, I thought long and hard about this and came to the conclusion, tell me if I'm wrong, that if that strategy is a viable strategy for the other team, then that still means there's a problem. Right. And
like if they can still go with break us in mid.
Right. Because if the player is super good and super competent, you can't go at him and exploit that advantage. So the fact that they can in and of itself says that there's somewhat of a deficiency there. So I do want to make that point.
Yeah. And how much of that is based on him being green, the overall strength of mid laners being so much higher. I think about some of the other rookies, like rookies at the split, right? We've had, oh boy, let me see if my history is right on this, but I believe, Licorice was last season. I can't remember who the other one was last season, but then we had Broken Blade, Spring. Rookie of the split is not coming through mid, and I think that's probably for a reason. Like that's, it's just you can't do it. So either Licorice is that much better than him, and I'm not, of course Licorice is better than him, but I think part of it is Licorice is matching up against less imposing top laners, right?
And by the way, it was Viper, not Broken Blade.
Oh really? Oh yeah. Sorry. I watched Viper play last weekend, and I just wondered about that. Maybe it should have been Broken Blade. Anyway, thanks for the correction. So yeah, top laners getting rookie of the split, and so is he rookie of the split? Nah. But should we expect him to be? Nah.
Okay, fair enough. So
It's
what
tough,
you're
man.
saying is go easy on your boy, Soligo.
I think you just got to have, what's the replacement? It's like, what's the baseball terms, what's the wins above replacement for your next rookie mid laner?
Right.
It's probably not any different, and perhaps worse.
Yeah.
So that's just the hand we've been dealt.
Sure. Well, I think I want to end it on this then, and then we'll talk about our YouTube winner. Oh, that was a hint. Sorry, our giveaway winner. I think like right now we're focusing on a lot of like things that don't bode well for the team or whatever. Like we're having the tough conversations, pretty pessimistically, but I do think that we, as a fan base, need to chill out a little bit. Because on one hand, it's like we've lost 13 of our last 14 games, right? And then on the other hand, it's like we're still at the start of a new split with a new comp. If you want to like get tricky with words, 40% of our roster is new to the team, basically. And Amazing's barely had any time. There are more than enough reasons to not draw sweeping conclusions about the rest of the split. So we do need to have an attitude of patience. And I get that it's hard to never feel like we have a chance to win, or in the rare occasion that we do, we throw. So that's weighing heavily on me right now, obviously, but like definitely we can be more measured about how we perceive what's going on with the team. And we need to be honest, right? We need to look for the problems and track them. But it's got to be like minimum after week 3 is when we can start talking about seeing genuine patterns with the split, right? 6 to 8 games. If things are happening all the time, like that's when it starts to become a pattern or a habit instead of just, we're not sure.
Right.
So
sample size is so small, and there are so many other contributing factors that, I'd say week 3 is really the first point where I'll expect us to have a good sense for what this team is.
Yeah.
Because it's a very different team. You're right.
It
Like
is a very different team.
You cannot undersell that.
Mm-hmm. So we're going to have to remember that our patience level should be a little bit higher than where it probably is right now. And then also remember that we still remember what happened last split. So accountability will be a big thing, I think, for summer 2019. And by midway through this split, we're going to know if we have some serious long-term issues, if we need to, drop a nuclear bomb on the roster or what. But it's not going to be an easy road ahead. Speaking of the road ahead, our next 2 games, we face potentially wildly different opponents, right, in Team Liquid and Clutch Gaming. Do you want to go ahead and weigh your predictions for those 2 games? I think it's already pretty clear where you stand on them, but go on the record with them.
Yeah, so I've already said my piece on Clutch, which is we've never lost them in the league. We're not going to start now. This ain't the time. And Liquid, mid-table team, 1-1.
Hovering right at 500 right now.
Yeah, that's a rough start. That's a rough start to your split. I get it. They're probably panic pods all over the place.
They're probably reeling, and there's a real opportunity to come in and punch them in the mouth, right?
Honestly, I do think that what we are to Clutch, if we're going to go back to like the rock, paper, scissors thing, TL is to us. Like, those guys they'll probably play some of the best league they've ever played against us. I just fully expect that because I think it's a statement game every time they play us. Like, these guys had the tenacity to challenge us in the finals. So I don't think we win that game.
No, I don't think we win that game either. So my predictions are actually, I'm going to predict the first ever loss to Clutch Gaming. I think we have an 0-2 situation this week. I think we just need more time, man.
So.
I think we need more time. I think that Amazing needs to get situated a little bit more. I think there's some coaching work to be done and some synergy to be found. And what do we know about Clutch? Besides, we almost always, or I should say, we always win the series. We've dropped a game to them in a best of 5. We dropped 2 games, actually. Yeah. But what we know about Clutch is that the average game time is something like 51 minutes with them. And that's legit what it is.
You're
I'm
not
exaggerating.
That's not hyperbole. Yeah.
So it should be a really hotly contested game. And our track record in those has not been very good lately. And I think it's just too early for the team to really gel into place. And DeMonte, again, small sample size, but he looks like he's playing pretty well. He looks like he's in good form right now. And if he's playing pretty strongly and we've got that position as maybe a current weakness of the squad, I don't think it bodes super well. So I'm going to go ahead and say I think we dropped to 0-4 after this weekend. Man,
watch Soligo against DeMonte. Like, if you want to get a sense for who he is going to be, not HUHI, but like how this split will go, or what his developmental path is. How does he do against DeMonte? Because I think that's the nearest thing we have to replacement level, right? People are talking about replacing. If you're going to talk about replacing Soligo, it's got to be somebody like that.
Yeah.
So
okay,
that'll
that's
be interesting
fair
to watch.
But man, who knows? I mean, like I said, he had a strong start. So let's. I like this take from Ray's Modern Life in Twitch chat. He said, "Guys, just give it time. The new Rocket Mortgage house setup will carry us." That's right. Playing on that beautiful new stage. It's a heck of an activation by then, by the way.
Yeah.
Playing on that stage, it's got you need the LED lighting to really put you there and see yourself in the studio. So who knows? Maybe that will carry us.
By the way, the summer finals, Rocket Mortgage summer finals.
That's right.
Dang.
So maybe we can, pay some money and get in, or what? I don't know. Not suggesting anything.
Surprise.
Dan Gilbert. All right. So let's do what everybody's actually here watching for, and that's to reveal the winner
Please tell
of
me.
the sold out 100 Thieves dad hat from the spring 2019 apparel drop.
Limited edition.
Limited edition. You all worked so hard trying to win this thing, but there can be only one winner, and that winner is, drum roll, Jordan. That winner is YouTube user Ravage. Okay, Ravage on YouTube. You are the winner. We will get in touch with you, and we'll get your details and shoot you a little 100 Thieves dad hat. And we hope you enjoy it.
Is Ravage legit GL on Twitch, or is he just soaking in the glory of an imagined win?
No
If
idea.
it's legit GL.
Oh, cool.
Congratulations.
Awesome. Well, we'll be in touch with you, good sir.
Yes.
Or good madam, whoever you are. Look.
Oh, just imagine.
We are. I'm going to give you a promise right now. We are going to do another giveaway on the show, and it's going to be soon. All right. So do not worry. There will be more chances to win, more chances to get your hands on that sweet, sweet, sweet apparel from 100 Thieves.
Or you could go to StockX.
That's right.
And pay a few $100 for it. So what I'm saying is continue to tune in.
Yeah, continue to watch, follow, subscribe, all those things that show your support. Look, let's have a better week 2. Even if we go 0-2, let's have some nice little lessons learned, and let's all still be great friends at the end of this. And most importantly, continue to support. Like, let's be good, optimistic fans and not too fatalist like I'm being tonight. All right, I'll bang myself into shape out of the games.
What was it? There's a quote you gave at some point, probably last split.
Okay, let me remember that thing I said a year and a half.
No, you'll remember it. I'll say it's like at least we're still great friends.
Yeah, exactly. We're all still.
What is
great
that quote?
Friends. It's from Talladega Nights. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
We tried hard, and we're all still great friends.
See, we've still got each other.
That's right. We've got our tight-knit little community. Everyone, it's been a pleasure. It's actually cool that the split's back in action now, and we can do our regular LCS shows. Keep your eyes on the channel, because later this week we will have the much celebrated and vaunted Red Rivalry show later this week. We're not sure exactly which day, but we'll let you know. And we will have our good friend Zach come on the show and be a representative of the worst red team, and he will try to convince us that Clutch Gaming has a chance, even though I already gave my take on it.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's the easiest convinced job of his life.
Well, look, if there's anything to get me to change my take on it, it'll be getting into some banter and trash talk with a Clutch Gaming fan. I'm more than happy.
And or
to
Zach
do
is
that.
gonna predict that we win, and then that'll make it easier.
Then it'll
for
be
you
a
to-
real big pickle.
He'll be selling you on it.
All right, it was wonderful. As always, we love you and we miss you already. We'll do this again soon.
Bye, everybody. Thanks for watching.
Yeah, thanks for watching.